Guys, welcome back, and today we of course are here to review round 14. A lot of teams having the bye this week. We've only had 6 games over the weekend, and we started with the Brisbane Lions up against St Kilda on Friday night. Of course, no more Thursday night games, but this one was a really high scoring match. It's the first time I think since 2018 that St Kilda have played in a game with both teams going over 100 points, but in the end the Lions were able to run out winners by 20 points in the end, despite St Kilda surging back in the last quarter. The Brisbane Lions steadied and won by 20 points. 126 to the Lions, 106 to the Saints. Now, there was one injury concern from this game, which was Liam Henry. Late in the game, he did an ankle injury and didn't return to the field. Now, it is unknown the severity of the injury at this stage. I'm starting to record this on Saturday morning, but that is a real concern because he has been a very good recruit for St Kilda this year. But let's get to the game itself. The Lions started brilliantly with the first 3 goals of the game. The Saints did respond with a couple of their own, but the Lions really steadied and finished the quarter with another 4 goals and led by a big 31-point lead at quarter time. It was a little bit more controlled in the second term, but the game was still free-flowing and both teams were pretty attacking, which was surprising from St Kilda, and they actually won the term in the end. However, they did miss some chances, the Saints, with 4-5, and were still down by 23 points at half-time. Now, much like the first quarter, the Lions kicked the first couple of goals and started brilliantly in the third term and had a comfortable 36-point lead. The Saints would fight back with a couple of their own in response, but then the Lions really took back the late advantage in the quarter and had a comfortable 37-point lead into the final change. Throughout most of the game, every single time the Lions would try to break away, the Saints wouldn't let them get too far away, and in the last quarter they came back hard. The Saints kicked 6 of the first 7 goals in the final term, brought the margin back to only 8 points, but the Lions steadied with 3 quick goals to put the game to bed. The Saints kicked 1 late, but in the end that broke the Saints, and in the end the Lions ran out winners by 20 points. So it was a great win from the Lions. They've won their last 2 games since their bye, so maybe they can make a late charge towards the 8. To be honest, I don't think it's a big deal if the Lions do miss the 8 this year, because I think that they have got quite a few injuries. They won't be able to push too far in finals, let's be honest. If they're not playing at home in the finals, they're going to struggle. I think it's okay if they miss the finals. And St Kilda, they did well to kick over 100 points, but I think like Ross Lyons said at the end of the game, yippee, who cares, basically. It's not going to make a difference because they got smashed on the other side of it. So St Kilda really have to find a way to balance out their defensive game with their attacking game, because if they play attacking and they lose, but they concede 126 points, it's not going to make a difference. So something that Ross Lyon will have to sort out. So let's get to the statistics in this game. Hugh McCluggage top scored with the 132 on the AFL fantasy front. He had a massive first half and kind of tapered off towards the end. Joe Danaher kicked the 5 goals. He finished on 131. Dane Zorko led from the front with the 125. Ryan Lester 109. Rowan Marshall top scorer for the Saints with the 105. And then Mason Wood really hitting form the last couple of weeks with the 103. So, of course, now we get to the votes, guys, and as I've said every single week and how we've been doing it every single week, we've been giving a 3-2-1 voting system for every single game of the AFL season, and at the end of the regular season, between the bye and the finals, we'll be doing a live countdown of every single vote in the season, and we'll have our second ever Boundary Riders medalist. So make sure to look forward to that, but we're up to round 14, so we've still got a long way to go. I'm not showing anyone the leaderboard until the end of the season. I was going to do it maybe around early in the season to give someone a little bit of a look at it, but I thought, no, we're going to keep it a secret till the whole way through. So unless you've been keeping up to date and have an Excel spreadsheet ready to go like I do, no one will know who's winning it at the moment. But let's get to the votes. Joe Danaher got the 3 votes in the end. 2 votes went to Hugh McCluggage and the 1 vote went to Dane Zorko. So the first game on Saturday, guys, was the Bulldogs up against the Dockers at Marvel Stadium, and the Bulldogs had a couple of charges from Fremantle throughout the afternoon, but the Bulldogs ran away comfortable winners in the end by 67 points, 149, a massive score from the Bulldogs to 82 Fremantle. There was one injury concern from this game, which is Michael Walters seems to have done a serious hamstring strain. It is a little bit unsure as to how severe it is at the moment, but he did this in the second term and was quickly subbed out. He had to limp off the ground, so it was really unfortunate for Michael Walters, 33 years of age now. Going to be really hard to see him come back and have a real influence as a Docker. But let's get to the game itself. It was a really topsy-turvy first term, with the Dogs kicking the first 2 goals of the game. The Dockers did well to quickly respond midway through the quarter and take the lead, but the Dogs would again respond and take a 4-point lead into quarter time. But then the Dogs would really take control in the second quarter. They kicked 5-1 against Fremantle, and at halftime had a comfortable 28-point lead. Now, going into the third term, the Dogs seemingly put the game to bed early, being able to push out to a 58-point lead. But to the credit of Fremantle, they did kick 4 goals of their own in a row to give themselves a glimmer of hope, but were still down by 42 points at 3-quarter time. And when the Dockers kicked the first 2 goals of the final quarter, it did seem like there may be some doubts running through the Bulldogs, but they did well to quickly steady the Western Bulldogs. Finished off with 6 of the last 7 goals to run out comfortable winners in the end by 67 points. So a great win from the Bulldogs. They are honestly one of the most inconsistent teams this year. They play some massive games and they play some absolute stinkers. So great win from them. They have to find the consistency if they're going to make finals this year and compete in it. I think they can, and their percentage is really good at the moment. But if they have these poor performances, they may risk missing the 8. So great win from them. Dockers, on the other hand, coming off a big win against Melbourne, the bye. Very sluggish. Hopefully they can bounce back next week. But now let's get to the statistics. Marcus Bontempelli, top scorer with the 142. He was massive. Bramble with the 134. English with the 124. Treloar with the 111. Dale with the 110. And then Rory Lobb with the 107. Great performance from Rory Lobb in the end in this game. He doesn't get into the votes, but do have to give kudos to him. He's been raked through the coals for a couple of months now. So great performance from Rory. Now let's get to the votes in this game though. 3 votes went to Marcus Bontempelli, 2 votes went to Tim English, and the 1 vote went to Adam Treloar. After that, we get to Richmond versus Hawthorn at the MCG, the Saturday twilight game. And in Dusty's 300th, unfortunately, the Tigers couldn't get it done. Hawthorn, in really good form at the moment, ran away. Pretty comfortable winners in the end by 48 points. Richmond 49, Hawthorn 97. So the game started off perfectly from a narrative perspective when Dusty blasted a long goal from 50. Deserved a big highlight, and he got it. So well done, Dusty. One of the best players I've ever seen. So really good job from him. But to the credit of Hawthorn, a young side, they did settle into the game pretty quickly, took control and led by 12 points at quarter time. The Hawks led with the pressure in the second term, but to the credit of the Tigers, they did well to stay close at halftime, only being down by 19 points. But then the Hawks really broke free in the third term. It was a pretty stagnant start to the quarter, with only 1 goal to either side halfway through it. But Hawthorn kicked 4 late goals to take a comfortable 44-point lead into 3-quarter time. And in the final quarter, Hawthorn's defence did kind of drop off, but unfortunately for the Tigers, they really couldn't take their chances, only with 1 goal 5. And in the end, Hawthorn ran out, convincing winners by 48 points. So another great win from Hawthorn, keeping their finals hopes well and truly alive. It was a good percentage boost for them as well. Richmond, they weren't really expected to win this game, but really unfortunate they couldn't get it done for Dusty. And really good to see him have some really good highlights in that game. But let's get to the statistics in the game itself. James Sicily, top score with the 137. Tim Taranto with the 127. He was really good. Nick Vlosten with the 114. Jaden Short with the 100. Newcomb with the 99. And then D'Ambrosio with the 97. Now let's get to the votes in this game. 3 votes went to James Sicily, 2 votes went to Jai Newcomb, and the 1 vote went to Tim Taranto. I thought maybe Tim Taranto doesn't deserve a vote because of how poorly Richmond were in the game, to be honest. But Tim Taranto, he was absolutely brilliant. He was only shining light, really, on the Richmond side throughout the whole game. I know, obviously, it was glossed over by Dusty's 300, but Richmond weren't really that good for the majority of the afternoon. So Tim Taranto was the one shining light, hence the 1 vote. After that, we get to Saturday night, Adelaide versus the Swans. A real danger game for Sydney, in my opinion. And halfway through the third quarter, I thought maybe this is going to be a real upset brewing. But the Swans really steadied halfway through the third quarter, kicked 10 of the last 11 goals, I believe, and ran away pretty comfortable winners by 42 points. Adelaide 67, Sydney Swans 109. So like I said, the Crows started brilliantly and it was led by their pressure. The Crows did really well to have a 17-point lead late in the quarter, but after conceding a late goal, the Crows only led by 11 points at quarter time. It was goal for goal early in the second term, but the Crows did have a 23-point lead late in the quarter. But the Swans would respond with 3 late goals of their own, only being down by 4 points at halftime. And Joel Amartey, this is when he got really started. He kicked 4 goals in the second term, which is really good. He actually didn't have a touch or do anything in the first quarter, so he really responded. The Swans did have some chances early in the third term, but for the first half of that quarter, we actually saw neither team kick a goal until we saw Fogarty, who went back and kicked Truly, followed by Saligo, and the Crows had a 16-point lead, and it seemed like maybe an upset was really brewing. But the Swans finally hit their strides with 6 goals in 12 minutes to snatch a 21-point lead at 3-quarter time, and Joel Amartey again led from the front with 4 more goals. And in the final term, the Crow spirit was truly broken. The Swans kicked 4 goals to 1 in the final term and run away comfortable winners by 42 points. So, of course, Joel Amartey was the best player on the ground. I don't think we have to really go over that too much. He kicked 9 goals in the end. His previous best was 4, so congratulations to Joel Amartey. He led from the front tonight and really got the Swans started. So, great win for Sydney, but great to see Joel Amartey getting a real game up his sleeve to hopefully give him some confidence going forward in the season. Let's look at the statistics though. Brody Grundy top scorer with the 133. 133. He was big tonight. Joel Amati, of course, up the top with the 131. Mitch Hinge with the 130. Rory Laird with the 127 along with Errol Goulden. And then 125 to Isaac Heaney. So now let's get to the votes in this game. Of course, 3 votes goes to Joel Amati. 2 votes went to Isaac Heaney. And the 1 vote went to Errol Goulden. Brodie Gundy was very close to getting a 1 vote here. But I just felt like the majority of his work was done in the final quarter. He had 13 touches in the final quarter. Meanwhile, Errol Goulden and Isaac Heaney, I really felt like they sparked the comeback for Sydney and were pretty decent in the first half. So that's why, unfortunately, Brodie Grundy misses out on a vote here. So, guys, let's get to Sunday, 2 games, and we'll start with one of the biggest comeback wins that you'll see, with Collingwood coming from the clouds to steal the win against North Melbourne. An unlikely win was brewing for North Melbourne, but Collingwood stole it by 1 point in the end. A massive high-scoring game. Collingwood 119, North Melbourne 118. So let's get to the game. So despite Collingwood kicking the first goal of it, it was all about North Melbourne in the first quarter, led by their superstar in Nick Larkey. 4 goals in the opening term, and he had it on a string. And his teammates came along with him. They kicked 8 goals in a row, but a late goal to Collingwood saw the Roos only lead by 35 points at quarter time. And in the second term, the Pies kicked the first 2 goals of the term, and it looked like the Pies are finally going to strengthen throughout the contest. But then North Melbourne came back again, and not only matched the Pies, but really made them look second rate. North Melbourne went on to kick 6 of the next 8 goals, and had a massive 48-point lead at half-time. Now, early in the third term, they actually took a 54-point lead, and it looked like Collingwood, they didn't look like they really brought enough to the contest, and it looked like North Melbourne were going to win pretty convincingly. It was a pretty topsy-turvy third term, but Collingwood did kick the last 2 goals of the third quarter to get a glimmer of hope with 31 points down at 3-quarter time. But then the almighty comeback started and came pretty quickly. The Pies piled on 5 goals in a total of 21 minutes of playing time to snatch the lead. Now, the Roos finally responded with one of their own to take the lead back through Bryn Teakle, but the hero of the last quarter in Bobby Hill kicked his 3rd goal of the final term to win the game for Collingwood, and in the end, they held on by 1 point. Now, look, Collingwood were nowhere near their best today, but they did well to fight back and steal the win from North Melbourne, and you have to give them credit, but Collingwood really have to take a look at this game as a loss, I believe, and just fight back on next week. They absolutely stole this game. On North Melbourne's end, you can't lose a game after leading by 54 points. You just can't. I'm sorry, you can't take too many positives out of it. Now look, there were some positive signs. Will Phillips played well against Nick Dacos, but then you sub him out. That was a terrible move. And Nick Dacos was the match winner in the end, really. I mean, other than Bobby Hill. George Wardlaw played brilliantly. Nick Larkey was up forward and was dangerous throughout the whole majority of the afternoon. That you just can't cover the crack of that and say, oh, look, it's just unfortunate. No, that is embarrassing to lose a 54-point lead, no matter who you are and who you're playing, to then lose the game. So let's look at the statistics in this one. Cam Zurhaar top scored with the 120, George Wardlaw with the 117, Bailey Scott with the 116, Jack Crisp with 105, Cherry with the 104, and then Nick Dacos with the 101. Let's get to the votes in this game, and this was super tough because North Melbourne were led for the majority of it, but in the end, I've actually given the 3 votes to Nick Dacos. 2 votes has gone to George Wardlaw, and the 1 vote has gone to Bobby Hill. Nick Dacos, the reason why I've given him the 3 votes is because he had to fight through a tag and was inevitably the match winner in the end. Without Nick Dacos, they don't get back into this game and then go on and win it. He kicked some 2 crucial goals throughout the afternoon and won it for them in the end. George Wardlaw, I think, was North Melbourne's best player, and I think he was massive in the first 3 quarters. A little bit tapered off in the last, but I think at 3-quarter time, he was the 3 voter. So that's why I gave him the 2. And Bobby Hill, he had 2 goals to 3-quarter time. So he kicked 3 in the last quarter and, it was the match winner on the scoreboard. But I just couldn't give him any more than 1 vote because he was pretty well held in the first half. He missed some opportunities, but in my opinion, I think Bobby Hill really came onto the scene in the last quarter. And thank God he did, because if he didn't, Collingwood was screwed. And then finally, let's get to Port Adelaide up against the Giants. And after Port Adelaide held the lead at quarter time, the Giants finally hit their stride and then ran out comfortable winners in the end by 22 points. 73 to the Giants, 51 to Port Adelaide. So, from the outset, this game, no team could kick straight. The Giants kicked 6 behinds in the first quarter, but dominated the majority of it. Port Adelaide were able to kick straighter. They kicked 3 goals, 3, and led at quarter time by 15 points. Now, in the second term, the roles not really switched, but the Giants finally hit their stride and started to kick decently. They kicked 4 goals, 2 in the second term, and they were able to lead pretty convincingly by 7 points, but they felt like they were a lot more further in front. So working into the third quarter, the Giants just threatened to take the game away from Port Adelaide, but just couldn't convert once again. Port Adelaide
were able to respond a couple of times when the Giants looked to try and break away, but 3 goals 6 from the Giants in the third quarter just kept the point of Port Adelaide can't cut them back here. And at 3/4 time, the scoreline was 7-14 to 5 goals 10. So what's that? 12 goals 24 on the scoreline. And look, it doesn't get any better in the last quarter. The Giants, I think, pretty much had this game won throughout the majority of the last quarter. Port Adelaide did threaten. I mean, they kicked 1 goal 5, so they did have chances, but the Giants just held them at bay, I felt like. In the end, the Giants kicked 9 goals, 19, so 28 scoring shots, and only ended on 73. So with a game with so many scoring shots, so many opportunities, it was a very low-scoring game of football. But the Giants did what they had to do. They had to somehow snatch this win, even if it was ugly, and now they find themselves back in the 8, which we'll get to in a minute. Let's get to the statistics in this game. So top scorer in the end was Dan Houston with the 133. He was a shining light for Port Adelaide. Lockie Whitfield with the 120, Kane Farrell with the 100, Jake Riccardi with the 97, Jesse Hogan with the 96, and then Kieran Briggs with the 89. So now let's get to the votes in this game. Now, my brother and I were streaming this one, so we did say this after the stream, and we've gone with these for the votes. 3 votes went to Kieran Briggs, 2 votes to Toby Bedford, and the 1 vote to Jake Riccardi. Now, Toby Bedford, you'd be wondering, if you didn't watch this game, why has he got votes here looking at the stat sheet? He was the tagger on Zach Butters and Connor Rosie when Zach Butters wasn't in the stoppages. And not only Toby Bedford shut them both down when he was in them, but he actually hit the scoreboard a few times as well. So Toby Bedford, he was close to getting 3 votes here, but I just felt like Kieran Briggs really dominated the ruck role throughout the whole afternoon. That's why he got the 3. But Toby Bedford deserves 2 votes here. He was brilliant. And now Jake Riccardi. Again, you look at the stat sheet, you'd see that he's a key forward and he hasn't got a goal. But he was taking so many marks along the wing throughout the whole game. In the second half, he really spun a light. If he wasn't in that game in that second half, I don't think the Giants go and win this game as convincingly as they do. He was strong in the contested marks. He was brilliant, so that's why he got the 1 vote. But of course, guys, with that being said, let's get to the ladder after round 14. The Swans have a 3-game lead on top of the ladder with 48 points, 12 wins and 1 loss. Carlton had the bye this week. They still sit in 2nd. Collingwood, but they come from behind victory, are in 3rd. Essendon are in 4th after having the bye this week. The Giants move up to 5th spot with that win. The Cats with the bye as well, they're sitting in 6th spot. The Power drop right back down to 7th with 32 points as well. The Dockers clinging into 8th spot with 30 points. The Bulldogs with a big win against them, sitting in 9th spot, just off by that draw. The Gold Coast Suns sitting in 10th spot with 28, along with Melbourne in 11th spot. They have gone right down now, the Demons. Hawthorn sitting in 12th spot. Brisbane fighting hard with the last couple of weeks. They're sitting in 13th. The Saints are in 14th spot after a loss to the Lions. The Crows sit in 15th. The Eagles sitting in 16th spot. The Tigers are sitting in 17th. And North Melbourne still down the bottom. But looking at it right now, if they won that game as convincingly as they were playing in the first 3 quarters, North Melbourne would have been able to knock the Tigers down to the bottom. So it does show if you bring the pressure in games, anyone can win. I guess that's what the AFL storyline would be anyway. But guys, that is the review for round 14. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you did watch on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe, of course. And if you were listening on Spotify, make sure to leave us 5 stars. And also make sure to follow so you're notified on the podcast, which comes out every single week. The reviews, which come out on Sundays or the last day of the round. And of course, the trade videos that we do release on there as well. But guys, again, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And we'll catch you all next week.